Hello friends, during the Russia-Ukraine war, the US sanctions had a very serious impact on the Russian economy, but it also had the opposite effect on the US economy with many fields. However, in today's video we will only analyze one factor that is considered extremely important to help the US economy maintain its position as a global superpower, which is the position of the petrodollar, also known as petroleum dollar. But it is under threat, and may be usurped by this economic war between Russia and the US. Why is that so? Let's find out together. Let's talk a little bit. Why is the petrodollar so important to the US economy? What is the petrodollar? In fact, it is also a US dollar currency, but it is indirectly backed by oil. Specifically, in the past, the US dollar was pegged to the gold standard, which meant that the US government told people around the world, "Dear friends, please spend our dollars. It's not paper because whenever you want, you can bring it, and we will exchange it for you." That makes people all over the world feel secure that US money is really reputable. We can just spend it with this money. It is no different from gold in the form of paper, so the US dollar is very trusted. Until one day, the US was heavily indebted. The amount of gold in the warehouse was too little compared to the amount of paper money printed. People from all over the world knew that they kept coming to exchange for gold to keep safe. The United States could not have much gold to exchange for people, so it made a green statement that, "We would like to announce that we will not exchange gold for dollars anymore." This statement has made the whole world bewildered. It's dead. Now it doesn't exchange for gold, so I hold its dollars like holding scrap paper. However, the US understands this thinking, and if people throw dollars away like scrap paper, the US economy will also collapse. Therefore, the US had another plan to protect its money, which was to force all the world to buy oil only with US dollars. But you know, oil is so important. How can we live in an industrial society without petrol and gas? But if we want to buy it, we have to use dollars, so dollars are still very valuable. But how can the US make the world buy oil and gas in dollars? It turned out that the US had reached out to the world's oil magnates and made an agreement. Now that you agree to only accept dollars when you sell oil, we will send troops to defend your country from all enemies on the earth. The agreement was successful, so the US has achieved its purpose. With the important role of the dollar, it gradually gained trust around the world and became the most popular currency in transactions and hoarding around the globe. That gives the US a huge advantage in trade, and at the same time, the US can print more money. But the inflation is shared by the whole world, and thanks to that, the US has trillions of dollars with just a tiny bit of ink. Although countries know this very well, almost no country can overthrow the position of the US dollar because the US is too strong both economically and militarily. However, the future story may not be the same. There have been many events that negatively affected the throne of this currency. Especially after the war between Russia and Ukraine, the dollar will most likely be dethroned or at least depreciated because of the following important events. First, the US has removed Russia from the SWIFT international payment system, and American and European banks have also banned payment activities with Russia in US dollars. That caused Russia to have trouble buying and selling goods with foreign countries, but it also caused Russia to find other solutions. That is, Russia recently announced that it only sells gas in rubles or yuan, not accepting dollars anymore. But as you can see above, buying and selling oil using USD gives strength to this currency. Russia is a major oil and gas supplier in the world. Without using USD, of course the value of the dollar will be adversely affected. Secondly, when banned Russia from using USD to trade with other countries, Russia looked to China to build its own payment system without using the US system anymore, and this is not a hypothesis. It has actually begun to become a reality. Specifically, China, Russia, and the allies of these two giants including Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Belarus and Armenia have discussed setting up their own payment system, which will most likely use yuan as a common currency. And if successful, in the future countries dealing with Russia and China will have to use yuan for payment, so USD will be used less. Third, the recent relationship between the US and Saudi Arabia, the second largest oil seller in the world, is deteriorating for many reasons. The first was Saudi Arabia's claim that the United States lacked support in the 2014 Yemen civil war. Then during the election campaign, President Biden criticized Saudi Arabia, saying, "We'll not sell more weapons to this country." The US also withdrew troops from Afghanistan, making the Arabs think more. Now, the US buys less oil from the Arabs. In 1990, the US bought 2 million barrels per day. but now there are only 500,000 left. In contrast, China has risen to become an important partner of Arabs with a trade of 1.7 million barrels of oil per day, 3 times that of the US, not to mention the trade between Saudi Arabia and China is also growing more and more. Therefore, Saudi Arabia is considering selling oil to China in yuan because the US has not protected Saudi Arabia well, while buying oil is not worth much. If neither Russia nor Saudi Arabia use the dollar to buy and sell oil anymore, the dollar will again lose some of its strength. So, from the 3 events above, it is very likely that the petrodollar will be overthrown by the yuan. What do you think about this? Let's discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching the video, goodbye and see you again.